This episode of Liquor and Literature will be discussing a book set in Austria during World War II. Nazi beliefs and actions are portrayed in the writing, including depictions of war, anti-Semitism, racism, toxic masculinity, abuse of power, domestic violence, and genocide. As hosts of this show, we do not condone Hitler's actions or Nazi Germany's ideas in any way. We strive to discuss these issues in ways that will not alienate or suppress others, but will be covering themes that may not be suitable for children. Also, cuss words are a part of our regular vocabulary, and drinks will be had. So, keep that in mind if you are sensitive to liquored up loudmouths. Welcome to Liquor and Literature. We are a podcast, a book club, and a happy hour. My name is Lauren.
I'm Amber.
And I'm Sam.
And if this is your first time listening, welcome. If not, welcome back. We are basically once a month, we read a book, and then we talk about that book. And we also have a drink pairing and a food pairing. We talk about the author, and then we include any media adaptation that is also involved in said book. Also, there are going to be spoilers, so if you'd like to read the book beforehand, check out our social media page because we always post things about the book that we're covering ahead of time, and then we release the episode at the end of the month. So, check out Liquor Literature Podcasts on Facebook and Instagram if you want. So anyway, let's get going on the book of the month. We are doing Caging Skies by Christine. How do you say your last name, Amber?
Leunens?
Leunens?
Sure.
Christine Leunens. And on that note, Amber.
Yes.
Why did you want to pick this book? You were the one that picked this book this month, so.
So much like Sam. I had never read this book. I chose it due to the movie. So flashback to everything is illuminated
Amber
here.
didn't read this fucking book.
Amber didn't read this fucking book. Except this book wasn't quite as horrifying.
No,
although
but
there were some parts.
I feel like this
similar-
is more horrifying than everything is illuminated, I think.
I think there's also
No.
random similar aspects, and I'm like,
Girl, it's
There
a
are
debate.
some similar things.
They're both horrifying. And
in
the
their own
movies were
ways.
not as horrifying, but
Yeah. Yeah.
The movie was fantastic.
The movie's
we'll talk
tricky.
about it later. But Caging Skies is just it's an interesting book. It's basically set in Nazi Germany.
Austria.
Oh,
yeah, get it right, girl.
Sorry, Nazi Austria.
We're drunk.
Yes, we are already intoxicated friends, and we're glad to be here with you today.
You sound like a preacher. Thank you for being here with us on this Sunday morning, talking about Caging Skies, a Nazi book.
A Nazi book.
Jesus Christ, what's happening? Anyway, continue.
So basically, Caging Skies follows the story of a young man. Basically, he gets indoctrinated. He goes into Hitler Youth, all of this stuff. And then the story turns when he finds a little Jewish girl in his walls that his parents have been protecting for some time. And so it's an interesting sight into what that was like for him, what it was like to kind of be like, oh, they're just another human.
But it took him a while to get to that point.
It did take him. He questioned his entire, and that's the thing we'll talk about, the questioning of your entire faith in something that has been indoctrinated into you.
It was like the opposite of Anne Frank.
Yeah.
It was like the people
Yeah.
on the outside where she was
Yes.
hidden instead of her on the inside, like.
It's an interesting outlook. It's not necessarily that these were terrible kids. They were indoctrinated into this. These are young people who were brainwashed into thinking this way. And so as they aged, of course, they made poor choices, not condoning those poor choices. But when you're raised in a way that's brainwashed, I think it's easier to make bad choices.
I feel like kudos to Christine for trying to have like someone that believes in Nazi beliefs have sympathy for that person.
Yeah.
Definitely in the book, I do not have as much sympathy for Johannes as I do in the movie.
The movie
for
is
sure.
easier to have.
Because I get what you're saying. Yeah, they were brainwashed, but also he did not change
No.
in the book.
And we're going to talk about that.
And so I don't have that much sympathy for him in the book. If he would have changed, I would have had a lot more sympathy for him because, yes, it's kind of like being in a cult. It's like, you know what? You got brainwashed and you did some fucked up shit. And as long as you make amends and you realize your fuck ups, then we can have sympathy for you and we can forgive you to a certain extent. But like if you don't, which a lot of Nazi people do not, then we don't have to. But I like that she tried to. There are parts in the book that I do have sympathy for him, but
I think they're at the
overall I don't, because he doesn't really fully change.
Well, I think too, he was such a young age in the book when he was indoctrinated, and I think that has a lot to bear because he was an impressionable person. And so, you know, when you're that young, you grow up thinking, well, you're so resolute in these thoughts that, you know, it's hard to change once you've just been that indoctrinated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We'll hit all of that really.
So that was a really big intro to the book. We have a lot to talk about with this book.
Yeah.
So we will dive into that in a little bit. But before we do all of that, let's go on to the drink pairing. Sam has a double whammy for us, don't you?
So I have a drink pairing that I made myself because I could not find any cocktail that really suited this. And then I have a bonus cocktail this time as well.
Bonus cocktail.
So I tried to do some research, and basically there were not any specific cocktails at the time that people were drinking, because during war you drank whatever you could find. So I get that. So I thought to myself, well, what's like a very German type, since this is a very Nazi-laden book. I was like, what's a German type of drink? Well, the only thing I could think of besides like beer, like Hefeweizen or Marzen, things like that, was unfortunately Jägermeister.
Womp womp.
Which I do not like.
None of us like Jaeger.
Yeah. I mean, if you've never had it, good for you. But
you are better than all the rest of us.
Congratulations.
Yeah,
you are not part of that club.
Yeah. It's an herbal liqueur, and
it tastes like black licorice.
That's the main taste. Yeah, there's like I'm trying to remember how many different. There's 56 botanicals within Jägermeister, and that's a lot.
It's a lot of flavor.
That's a lot of flavor.
You might not want in your mouth.
Mm-hmm. Like, so Jägermeister actually came from a family, the Mast family, who they did vinegar originally. So, not surprising, honestly. Fermentation, things like that. A lot of times, herbal liqueurs will come from monasteries and things like. I know chartreuse comes from monastery. Still today, it is only from a monastery, and they only know the secret recipe.
I was gonna ask you why there's a cross in the Jägermeister fucking logo. There's a cross above the deer head.
Yep,
that might be why, right?
Well, it's not because of that.
But you know the answer.
Yes, because it actually tells you on the Jägermeister website, because I was like a little like, well, what's going on with this?
Yeah.
So Wolfenbüttel is the actual habitat that they get all the herbs and stuff from, which is a lower Saxon town. But the drawing for the deer with the cross above its head is from the tale of Saint Hubertus. Apparently he was once a wild huntsman, and he had actually had a vision of a mighty stag carrying a glowing cross between its antlers. And then afterwards, it made him like a champion for nature and creating a greater respect for nature. And actually, there was some recipes that I found online, because I tried several of them, because I thought I'd only had Jaeger as either a shot or Jaeger bomb, and I hated both. So.
Yeah, because we think of it as like a college douchey bag drink.
Coming from a college town. That's
but
like
after
really
hearing the history of it, like I actually have a little bit more respect for Jaeger.
Yeah, it's kind of neat.
I feel like it was one of those drinks where where it originated from, it's thought of in a different way. It's not like a college frat drink, but then in America, it got Americanized, and now that's what we think of. But like, that's not what it was made for.
I guess they used to take it on hunting, journeys and extravaganzas, whatever, hunting trips, and they would have it. I mean, it personally, after trying all these drinks, it definitely gave me a good buzz. I'm not gonna lie. I was never super happy with any of the drink recipes that I found, so I created my own. And it sounds a little pretentious because there's kind of a lot of ingredients, but as a former bartender and former pastry chef, I am pretentious. Pretentious? Pretentious! I'm pretentious. When it comes
Nothing wrong with that.
When it comes to, like, making flavors meld together.
You know what you like, and you know what other people like, so there's nothing wrong with that.
And I also did like 5 different versions.
Yes,
today.
We did a taste test today.
So, and
that was fun.
We all kind of came to the same agreement on the final one, so that was nice.
Yeah.
So that, I don't know. My family in particular comes from the Black Forest region of Germany, and since I made the cocktail, I get to name it.
Yes, you do.
So I would say berry picking in the Black Forest.
Berry picking in the Black Forest. Berry picking in Black Forest. BPBF. The BPBF.
Yeah. It's so to me, the strongest flavor of Jaeger is anise. That licorice flavor, and I don't.
Anus.
Anus.
The strongest flavor of Jaeger is anus.
I mean, kind of, yeah. If you're not drinking it like this drink.
Yeah.
This is lovely. Sam did an excellent fucking job.
For making a Jaeger drink, you did a fabulous job.
It's refreshing. It's a little sweet
of
with the nice amount of bitterness to just like it's very nice. I'm not a big fan of Jaeger. This was lovely.
I had to make it palatable because honestly, I don't think it is palatable.
I have had 2 of these, which says that you did a good job.
Thanks.
Also, you were working on this drink earlier in the week, so that's like you've been thinking about this for a while.
This might be my second favorite, actually.
And you already did some taste tests too.
Yeah.
All right, y'all.
The ultimate taste test.
Yeah.
So what is in this drink?
So in this drink, because I wanted to go kind of sweet, someone actually told me, it's like, well, maybe why don't you go savory? And to me, this is not, Jägermeister is not a savory thing. It's already savory in itself and like very herbally and earthy, and I don't want that.
It'd be too much. Yeah.
So in this drink, what did I say? Berry picking in the Black Forest? Mm-hmm. Berry picking in the Black Forest.
BPBF.
By Samantha Britton. That's right.
What?
No one has this recipe but me.
Yeah.
And
it's
now
in your head. In your head. Sam.
Hey, raise the roof. All right. So it's an ounce of Jägermeister, an ounce of elderberry liqueur from Orchard, 3/4 ounce of vanilla vodka. I used Absolute, and then I used a 1/2 ounce of sweetened lime juice from Roses, and then a 1/2 ounce of Chambord, so you get that black raspberry taste in it as well. And then there's 3 to 4 dashes of rhubarb bitters. And then, after you shake that over ice, you pour it into your glass with a couple ice cubes. You pour on top like a blackberry sweet tea or a blackberry sugar-free sweet tea. And then you just give it a gentle stir and then top it with some blackberries for your garnish. And it's quite good.
Kudos to you. Thanks. What would be our non-alcoholic drink for this?
The elderberry liqueur, you could use elderberry juice. You could make the vanilla. You can make like a vanilla simple syrup, or a vanilla even maple syrup, and do that for like the vodka. The sweet lime doesn't have any booze in it. The Chambord, you could probably do like a black raspberry puree. It's not a ton in there, so it would give you the hint. blackberry sweet tea. There's no alcohol. I honestly don't know if there's any Jaeger like alternatives out there.
You could just do a nice blackberry tea.
You could, or maybe just even like adding anise, just like whole anise.
Oh,
and to
just
the
get that
ingredients to get kind of that
taste,
licorice, and maybe it's like a mint leaf in there.
All right, so then you have a second drink pairing, though.
Yes, this
Yes.
is really long. I'm sorry.
Oh no,
this is
it's all good.
So my bonus drink pairing is called the Suffering Bastard, and it has a little bit of history with it. It's called a Nazi fighting cocktail. It stemmed from the British soldiers that were stationed in Cairo at the time during World War II. And they basically really, really needed alcohol to kind of get the courage up to fight. And once the Nazis invaded Cairo, there was like one bar that they really went to, and they asked the bartender to make a drink for them to like send out to the lines. And the bartender was like, I don't have everything that I would need to make a specific cocktail. And they're like, make something. We don't even care what it is.
We just get drunk. That's all we want.
We just need the liquid courage. Okay?
Yeah.
So he did, and he sent them barrels upon barrels to the front lines to increase the courage of these British soldiers, because I guess like they just really needed the booze. I don't know. The drink itself is pretty easy to make. It has no particular spirit brand, I guess you could say. So it's an ounce of gin, an ounce of bourbon or brandy. We chose bourbon because we prefer bourbon over brandy.
I don't know if I've ever really tried brandy. That seems like an old person drink.
It's not good. If you're gonna drink anything like brandy, personally, I would try the apple brandy. Calvados is a type of apple brandy that they make in Normandy, and it's only in Normandy.
Oh, okay.
So that would be the only type of brandy that I'd like, honestly.
Interesting.
Jerk, E&J. E&J brandy, it's a brandy.
Jerk
is what we call it.
It sounds like a car that you didn't like shift right. Jerk.
I don't know what that's the actual name. That's what we called it when I lived in Oklahoma. I don't know. My God, I've messed up this recipe. Okay, so an ounce of gin, which we used Tanqueray, an ounce of bourbon, and we used Bullet, 2 dashes of bitters, a half ounce of lime juice cordial, which I used the roses sweetened lime, and an ounce of ginger beer, which we used Goslings at this one. So basically you put all those ingredients except for the ginger beer into a shaker, or you could actually just use it in a mixing glass and stir it. And then I added the ginger on top, did a like 1 stir, and then put the orange wheel, which we had a dehydrated orange wheel because that's what Lauren had.
I personally dehydrated those oranges.
She didn't.
No, I didn't. I just had them.
So that's what we used this time. But it's very boozy. So I could definitely see why they kept drinking, because it would be a terrible hangover.
And when you're in the throes of war, it's like, wow.
Fuck it, why not?
Yeah, at that point. But then you feel shitty all the time.
They never felt shitty because they never stopped drinking.
That's true.
Because they had gallons upon barrels and upon barrels.
Gallons upon barrels.
Upon gallons.
Okay, so this would be a hard one to have a non-alcoholic drink pairing for too then, right? Because 2 of the things are literally liquors.
Well, there are non-alcoholic gins and non-alcoholic bourbons.
As we stated before, yeah.
So I would say an ounce of the non-alcoholic Grove Garden Gin alternative. An ounce of Ritual non-alcoholic bourbon, or a Kentucky 74 non-alcoholic bourbon alternative. 2 dashes of the non-alcoholic all the bitter aromatic bitters, and then a half ounce of these roses sweetened lime juice, and then an ounce of cold ginger beer, and then an orange wheel and mint if you're fancy to garnish. And enjoy your very alcoholic or non-alcoholic drink.
Nice. Well, thanks for that, Sam. You did a lot of work for this one.
I did,
So
but it was fun.
I think it was worth it, though. I will say your drink was definitely better than the other drink. So
Surprisingly enjoyable.
Yeah, surprisingly, the Jaeger one was enjoyable. Well, on that note, after we've had, at this point, probably 3 drinks each, I think.
I've had 2, but, you know,
I
had a long
think
night.
I had 2. I might have had 2.5 because of Amber's.
I had a drink of each one I made, and
Sam's
then
had the most.
3 of these
Well,
because
what
I keep getting poured in my glass.
Listeners don't know is Amber and I went on a liquor run. And as we were on the liquor run, we came back and there was a flight of Jaeger.
There was 5.
Yeah, there were 5 big drinks to
And we're like,
try.
Sam's been busy while we've been gone. So
Yeah.
I think Sam, you've had a day so far.
And most of a beer.
Oh, yep, there you go.
Yeah.
But on that note, Amber, why don't you tell us about our author for this
the author.
This wholesome story that we're talking about today.
Story.
Good for you, Christine Leunens, for doing some research and figuring
She did
out.
a lot.
She
According
had
to
to
the
have
Yeah,
done.
I think it was very historically accurate.
I do
Yeah.
too. She's impressive.
Yes.
Like, I'm impressed.
Yeah, I love her writing.
I read the
It's-
acknowledgments and I was like, girl, you did the work.
Yeah.
Also, she's kind of a cool fucking lady.
She seems like a badass. I'm
Yeah.
not gonna lie. Like
I'm excited
I
to
would
hear
read
about
more.
her.
I would read more of her books for sure.
Yes. There's actually one called Amber's Wake, and we'll talk about that now.
No, written after you.
Yeah, it was written about me, guys.
Yeah.
Not really at all. Christine Leunens was born in Hartford, Connecticut. She moved to Paris as a teenager
Oh.
and was close with her grandfather, who was a well-known sculptor and painter. His name was Guillaume. Listen, I took French. I don't speak it. Guillaume Leunens. She says he was the one to predict from a young age that she would be a writer. She was close to her grandpa.
Oh,
Yep.
that's cute.
She also said something about he taught her lessons about like how hard it was to be an artist or something like that. Anyway, she became a model in Europe to pay for her schooling. She earned a Master of Liberal Arts in English and American Literature and Language from Harvard University Extension School and a PhD at Victoria University of Wellington. So
She's busy.
very
Yeah.
knowledgeable, like went to college, got a fucking PhD. Good for her.
She's smart.
Very. Her first novel, Primordial Soup, was published in the UK in 1999 and received praise in several major magazines. Caging Skies was published in 2004 and became an international bestseller. She has written 2 other novels, A Can of Sunshine, and most recently, Amber's Wake. She was married in 1999 and has 3 children. She can play the violin, which I thought was an interesting thing.
Oh, homage to Ut.
Yes. Uta.
Uta?
Uta.
Oh. See, again, a name that
Yes.
when I was reading it, I did not pronounce right.
Yes. I have ADHD and I read the book. Like, I have a physical copy, but I also always listen to the book. And so I have the benefit of getting to hear how, like, the names are supposed to be because of the audiobook.
Oh,
So I
yeah. Amber's got a good,
Yeah.
you got insight into that.
Yeah.
So it's Uta?
Uta. Uta is her name.
So, let's get into Caging Skies, everyone. I think so. The first thing that happens in this book is we get introduced to, his full name is Johannes Ewald Detloff Betzler, who is 10 years old, living in Vienna,
What
Austria.
The fuck was
That's his full name.
Johannes Ewald Detloff Betzler.
Yeah.
Wow, I don't
Yep.
remember that. Okay.
A fat, bald baby boy.
Yes. So let's talk a little bit about
Oh.
Johannes and his childhood before things start happening.
Sure. So Johannes he lived with his grandparents and his parents and his sister, who was she his twin?
No, she was older.
She was a little
She
older.
was older, yeah.
That's right.
Yep.
That's right.
Uta.
She was just a little bit older. She died just before she was 12 of diabetes. And his grandfather, who he called Pimbo, died a couple of years later of diabetes.
And pneumonia.
And pneumonia. And his father runs a factory called Yankov and Betzler. And then the end of the chapter, they talk about a speech that was being given at Heldenplatz, and it was a speech that Hitler was giving.
Yes. And it was the first time that Johannes sees Hitler.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's like this big, it sounds, the way he describes it, it's almost like a fucking parade. There's like flags everywhere.
Yeah.
Because
And there's music. Yeah. Germany was desperate at the time. Like, they were desperate for a change, and unfortunately they put all their stock in a madman.
Well, I mean, even at the parade, he was like, Vater, who is that man up there? And he was like, that man doesn't concern little boys like you, Johannes.
Yeah.
Except that
he also
it did.
And indoctrinated him.
Another quote that I thought was intriguing with that is just his perspective as a 10-year-old boy, because like at this point, like he doesn't know, like that's one thing I really like about this book, and just like in general, like anything to do with World War II, the gravity of what the Nazis did. Anytime you read any kind of description of it, there's just this heavy feeling, because you're like, oh shit, I know the connotations of what the background of that is. So this quote is, their flags had signs that looked as if they would turn if the wind blew on them, like windmills turn their forearms. And I'm like, that was just one sentence, but it means so much, because the swastika is such a fucked up symbol now that has so much power, but like so much heaviness too. Mm-hmm. So this 10-year-old describing it is
taken from Buddhism.
Yeah, I know. It was not originally, but it became that because of what Hitler made it. But having this 10-year-old describe it, having this 10-year-old describe it as a windmill.
Well, and it kind of just shows you like the innocence of where he's at. Mm-hmm. Because to be perfectly honest, at the very beginning of this book,
he is innocent.
Johannes is innocent. He is just a little boy.
He's 10 years old.
He's 10 years old. His parents are trying their best. They're trying their best to make sure that he gets raised in a way that's appropriate, but unfortunately with the indoctrination of Hitler Youth, of Hitler, just the way it works in the schools, it's not possible for him to stay innocent for long, which is very sad.
So then we get the transition between Austria and into Nazi Germany. There's a short little paragraph that says, there was much change and confusion at school, and even the map changed. Austria was scratched off and turned into Ostmark, a province of the Reich. Old books gave way to new, just as some of our old teachers were replaced by new ones. They're just basically spouting, they bring in all these Nazi teachers and they start spouting all this propaganda, and these young kids,
they don't know any
fall
difference.
for it, because what else do they know? They eat it up with
a spoon because that's what they're being taught in school.
Yep.
Well, they also don't have like either the ability or the reasoning skills to like even look into Jewish faith and see the similarities.
Yeah.
And I remember there was one part where one of the kids raised his hand and asked a question. It was something about how the teacher's like, every other race is lesser than us, and
it's in this
evolutionally speaking, they are lesser than us. And the kid raised his hand. He's like, well, what if is there any way they could evolve to be more like us? Like, what if they get to that point? And the teacher's like, no, they could never do that. He just like shot them down and was like, no, your question is wrong. You're stupid.
Hey, Hitler, I have some questions.
They
probably died.
They
probably
died.
died.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he was a very powerful, crazy person.
That's how people rise to power, though. Like, you get rid of people that don't agree with you.
Yeah.
You know, and he obviously did that.
Yeah,
and he had a way of speaking to the people to make them
again,
he's very
eloquent
with things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And Germany was completely desperate when he came into power.
Yeah,
it's true.
Yeah. So Johannes starts getting indoctrinated to all this like education, and we find out that his parents do not necessarily agree with what he's being taught.
They do not agree with what
they
he's
do not
been taught.
agree at all. And his father specifically starts kind of like talking to Johannes about it and gets frustrated because Johannes is like, well, that's not how they tell us it is in school. He's like, well, that's not how it really is, you know? And then his mom's like, you shouldn't talk to him about that because you don't know who he's going to tell about that, because she's recognizing what's happening.
Yeah, page 28, it says, my mother was worried that my father shouldn't be having these discussions with me because the teachers in school asked their students what they talked about at home. She said they'd ask in a way so I wouldn't realize the danger, that I was too young and naive to know when to keep my mouth shut. Which is true.
Yep.
And Johannes said, my new status wasn't accepted by my father either. He wasn't at all grateful for my willingness to teach him important facts. He diminished my knowledge and called it nonsense. He has this belief that what he is preaching is absolutely the truth. There's actually this question about God at one point.
Yeah. Which actually is a theme throughout the book.
It is a theme throughout the book.
It's just really later on in the book.
Yeah.
But basically, he's saying that Hitler's above God at one point, and it's really sad because that's really what he believed.
I wanted to say a quote bouncing off of what Sam said, where Johannes heard his parents talking about, like, oh, you shouldn't talk to him like that. Sometimes he forgot it was me he was arguing with. He felt more as if he was talking to them. He said language was more personal than a toothbrush, and he could hear it straight off when someone started using someone else's in a letter or in a conversation, and hearing their language in his little boy's mouth just disgusted him.
It's true.
Mm-hmm. It was so sad.
Yeah, like that just gave me chills right now. Just
because he's just parroting what he's been taught.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And his parents recognize that, and they can't do anything about it.
Yep. And they recognize the danger and what he was saying and doing. Mm-hmm. But if they acted out, they also knew the consequences.
Yep. So after that, there are book burnings that happen, which I think are notable that we need to talk about. It's a small part in the book, but yeah, this is one of those parts in the book where it's like, oh, this is interesting to see from a kid's perspective.
Yeah, because he wasn't really sure if it was like the right thing to do. He was like, he didn't seem to understand.
Yeah, what was going on. Because they started burning books, and he describes the scent of the air with the ink, the burning ink, and then he sees his mom hiding books.
Mm-hmm. And he finds them later.
But he doesn't turn her in or anything. He's like, he just put it in the back of his mind. So that's one of the parts where you're like, okay, he's not fully
indoctrinated
yet, but because he's so young, but at the same time, he's like witnessing what's going on.
There was so much knowledge that was lost because it happened even recently, actually. Like a whole, mothers, like, saying these children shouldn't read these books because of whatever, and they're the silliest reasons.
Yeah.
I mean, they do that still with all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, there's so many banned books, but like the Nazis took
a banned book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I read that.
Like, it's a primitive example of what the Nazis did. Mm-hmm. They took away the education, and they put... There's a part in this book we're going to get to, I think, where Johannes is like, yeah, they were more about like physical strength than education. And that's when we get to the
because even now,
stuff, but like
even with our own government, and I'm sorry, I'm this person right now.
We can get political.
If they keep you dumb, then you cannot disagree.
Yeah.
You cannot make a change if you allow them to keep you stupid.
Yeah.
And then on top of the book burnings, we get into the Catholic protests where Johannes and a bunch of his friends trash a cathedral because the cathedral is fighting like what Hitler's beliefs are, because they're like, no, like Hitler is not God, which is a whole religious thing.
Which is crazy because usually it's the opposite way.
Yeah, I know. Whenever I was like, wow, that's crazy. I'm actually like, have sympathy for the cathedral.
Everyone else fighting the church, you know?
Yeah. And then this is where we really get into the point where it's like, okay, Johannes has no faith in God. He has faith in Hitler. Mm-hmm. And then the other point.
It's because he's a baby.
Yeah.
He's a fucking baby. He doesn't have any life experience.
This is what he's
taking
taught.
This
what
is
he's being
basically
told.
my kid being taught this shit
Yeah.
right now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's all I can
He
think
has
is, what
no
if my
idea.
kid was put in that kind of a school and we were under those kind of fears where we couldn't take her out of school because if we did, we'd be seen
Killed.
as... Yeah. And they'd kill us. All
Yep.
of us.
You'd
Yep.
be dissenters and
Yeah.
you would be fucked.
So it's a very scary thought.
Well, and also the Catholic protest thing where he goes and like trashes a cathedral. It's very much mob mentality too, because it's like all his friends are doing it, so he's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna do it," you know. And it's
That's
like,
probably what most of their tactic for the kids was.
oh yeah,
yeah.
Is
one
if
for
you can
one.
get that one
Yeah.
over there to do it, then the rest will follow.
Yeah. Okay. So then it gets to. So I feel like we probably learned about this in history class. Crystal knocked. Do you remember that part of the book?
Crystal Knight?
Crystal knocked. So this is mentioned after the cathedral thing, but it's basically, so I looked it up on Wikipedia. It says, quote, beginning on November 9th, the SA and Hitler Youth shattered the windows of about 7,500 Jewish
Oh, yeah.
stores and businesses, hence the name Kristallnacht, aka Crystal Night, and looted their goods. So that's what
I
this,
do think I remember that very vaguely.
yeah, so that's
from
what
high
this
school.
Catholic church looting is referring to, was that.
Got you.
Yeah. So I just want to point that out because I remember like reading that and being like, I know I've heard that.
I remembered them
Yeah.
looting the churches
Mhm.
and stores, but
Do
I
you-
don't think I knew it was referred to as that.
So Johannes' father's factory's name gets changed to Betzler and Betzler.
Because that's not Jewish.
Yeah. So the other partner in that got taken to a concentration camp, probably.
Probably. Yeah.
Rest your soul.
And I remember they were supposed to be quiet about it. They weren't supposed to talk to his dad about it because
Yeah.
it was upsetting for him for obvious
Reasons.
fucking reasons.
So why don't we talk about the Hitler Youth survival camps?
Okay.
My God.
So
What fun!
he
Did not sound like fun.
he was put into the young folk, which is like the kiddie version of Hitler Youth. It's like for the younger group,
Yeah.
like the junior
Like the
Hitler Youths.
pubescent.
Yeah, like the little boys who shouldn't be given weapons anyway.
Do you guys remember that one song, The Young Folks?
Yes!
By Bjorn,
Whenever-
John, and so on.
Whenever Amber said the young folk, I'm like, oh, that's bringing me back to 2006.
What was it? Bjorn,
That was a banger.
Jan and John and Jan.
Oh no, that's a.
Is it called that?
Yep,
It's called Young Folks.
I
I did not.
based off of Hitler.
I did not ever think of it until just now, and that song gets fucking stuck in my head.
On break, let's check that out.
Okay.
See if there's any kind of correlation. I don't think
Anyway.
there probably is. I hope not. So anyway, he gets put into this group, and I think the most fucked up scene for this for me was where they were all given like ducklings to take care
yeah,
of.
please talk about this, but
Yeah.
I'm gonna cry.
I forgot about this until now.
I'm gonna cry.
So this is I just want to like explain how fucked up it is what they did to these kids. They basically were like, here's a duckling to raise. Make it trust you. Feed it, love it, cuddle it, make it trust you so that it comes directly to you so you can break its neck.
Yeah.
Because yeah, they were like, this duck represents those you love most that oppose Hitler.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, are you strong enough to break the neck of this duckling that you raised and took care of?
It was as if they were asking us to kill our own childhood somehow.
Yeah.
Ugh. Stab in the heart right there.
Yeah.
As a chicken person who has raised many a chick, I fucking want to wring their own necks.
It was super
Yeah.
depressing.
Well, okay, so after that happened, quote, Kippy asked me afterward if I had to kill him for the Führer. Could I? I looked at him and his face was so familiar. I knew I wouldn't have been able to, and neither would he have been able to kill me. But we both agreed this wasn't good. We were weak and we would have to work on it. Ideally, a leader told us we should be able to hit a baby's head against the wall and not feel anything. Feelings were mankind's most dangerous enemy. They, above all, were what must be killed if we were to make ourselves a better people.
I love that. Actually, I had marked both of those parts.
Yeah.
That you guys talked about.
It's just like so fucked up. Because it's like, they're literally being like, we know that you love these people, but we need to make sure that you would kill these people for us.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what they were teaching these.
Yep.
And their children.
Yep.
How old is he at this point? 10?
10, 11 at this point.
Maybe, yeah.
I think he was 10 when the book started, and this is only 40 pages in, so.
Yeah. And he's 13 when he joins actual Hitler Youth, guys.
Oh, okay, yeah. So right now he's
So
in the
he's
youngin'.
a little boy.
Yeah.
He is a little boy.
So yeah, there's one part where I don't remember if you guys remember this, but there's a part where Johannes' mom, which her name is, I don't remember her full name, but in the movie her name's Rosie, and I know in the book it's Rose something.
Rosalita?
It's not Rosalita, it's Roswitha or something like that.
Yeah.
But so Johannes had changed his room and put like all these like Hitler propaganda posters all around his room, and his mom like changed his room back to what it was before
I do remember that.
And I remember that part like really getting to me because I was like, oh, his mom is trying. Like the little simple thing. She's like trying to get the Johannes that she knew. And
She
knows
wants
that
him
it's
to be
still
a little
in
boy.
there. Yeah.
She doesn't want him to be Hitler Youth because it's not time to be a man. It's time to be a little boy.
Yep.
It is so depressing to her to see her little boy running around on these, like, he was marching all over the place to the point he was getting blisters on his feet at the age of 10.
Mm-hmm.
Which, like, yeah, sure, kids run around and they get blisters on their feet. This was, like, a whole other level.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
they had to take him to get special shoes, didn't they?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Because his feet were so fucked up.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like, yeah, it was just like her kind of way of trying to get him back and knowing that it probably wasn't going to work. And him trying to be like, I'm a man now. It's like, no, you're not. You're just brainwashed. So then Vienna became an air defense base, which means the war was getting closer and closer to them. And his friend Kippy gets killed by a bomb.
1 second, Kippy was standing there. The next, he was replaced by a mound of dirt that looked like an absurd, improvised tomb.
Yep. It just happened so quickly out of nowhere.
Yep. But then he says this too. If only he could have come back to life, we could have split our sides laughing about it. But without Kippy, I didn't laugh or talk much to anybody anymore.
So the rest of the quote for that was, it was the beginning of an irrepressible loneliness of walking around with a big old hole in my gut. I surprised myself sometimes by looking down and realizing that that hole wasn't really there. So does he get injured the same way Kippy does? I don't remember.
Basically, yeah, a bomb goes off and he's close enough to it.
Yeah, that he fucks up his... He's got a
It says,
scar on his face, and his right arm is fucked up, I think.
Well, his hand, one of the hands is missing.
I'd lost part of the cheekbone under my left eye, could no longer move my left arm, either at the shoulder or elbow, and I'd lost the lower third of my forearm. So he, like, basically lost from here.
Down.
Yeah.
There he had lost a hand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he had a scar on the face.
And then he had a very big... Well, it was more than... I think it was like...
I think it was just all, like, bunched up here because he lost part of his cheekbone.
It was kind of like...
and it was like almost like a half Chelsea grin almost, because the way it put it, like he always had like this halfish sinister grin almost because his face had been messed up.
Or like what happens when there's too much heat is applied, like 3rd degree burns or more. Like that kind of
like it just sears it and you get stuck.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So then there's a really sweet chapter where he gets nursed back to health, where he spends the days in bed with his grandma because his grandma is in bed too, and she was sick. She was sick and he was sick, so they kind of just bonded in bed together. Yeah, which I thought was really cute because it was like one of the chapters where it's like, oh, this is sweet.
It was something like, he was basically like, if Pimmican hadn't gotten better, I wouldn't have gotten better either.
Yeah.
He's
And
like,
you could
she
see their
started,
bond.
yeah, she started eating, so I started eating. She
Mhm.
started walking, so I started walking. Like, we basically, you know, I just followed her, and he got better.
Yep.
And he kind of talks about, too, like, you know, his mother as the caretaker and how she just kind of diminished as a person because she was so stressed and, like, looking after both of them. She just became kind of a skeleton of...
Yeah,
He
that
said
leads,
that.
That leads to something else.
Mhm.
Yeah.
though. Yeah.
He kept saying, like, because it's actually, like, as early as chapter 4, I think it was, he's like, my mother was always going somewhere, and she was disappearing, and she'd come back with these stinking, you know, bowls of feces or whatever. You know, it was basically human waste.
Yeah.
Because they went in buckets or whatever. And I thought it was my grandmother was being sick, but then grandma was getting better, and I thought maybe my mom was really sick.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But then he starts talking about how she's starting to look more and more skeletal, and it's not that she's... I don't think it's that she's sick or stressed, although she is definitely stressed.
Yeah.
It is that she's keeping who?
Well, but also he realizes that she's not eating all her food
Yeah.
and taking the
Uh-huh.
food upstairs.
Yeah.
That's the thing that really gives it away. So we get the inkling of what's to come, but not
Yeah.
yet.
Because his father also stopped coming home all the time. And he was gone much further, like a longer time.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And when he did come home, he came home with things.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
there's a part where he came home with a puzzle.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And
Johannes-
he went upstairs and put it somewhere, and Johannes was like,
That's for me. I'm gonna go
Oh,
find
yeah.
it.
what
That
the
go.
fuck? So he went upstairs rummaging around for it and he couldn't find it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He was really upset about that.
So, like, he saw his dad bring the puzzle upstairs. And then, so he went upstairs to rummage through to find the puzzle. But then his dad comes home and finds all this stuff rummaged through. So he automatically thinks, oh, he's trying to find shit on me. But Johannes was literally trying to find that puzzle. That's one of the
Right.
little times that I'm like, okay, that's little Johannes not being a fucking crazy-o.
Because he's a fucking child.
He is.
Yeah.
He is. He's a little boy.
He is. But the further this book goes, the less sympathy I have
It
for
gets
this
harder
guy.
to have
because
sympathy for him
he
as
gets
it goes.
real bad, guys. He gets real bad.
But
but
we'll
at the-
talk about
the
that
first-
too.
I have some...
Quarter of
Thoughts
it,
about that,
he
yeah. I do
is innocent, mostly.
He still ends up spying on his mother and then, like, contemplating whether to turn her in.
Well, yeah, he's been indoctrinated.
Yeah.
I mean, he's been completely brainwashed to do all this stuff. He's afraid she's part of the resistance,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, that's his mom.
Mm-hmm.
He
Mhm.
loves her. He doesn't want her to die. He doesn't want her to get hurt.
Him and his mom go to visit his dad at the factory.
Mm-hmm.
And he actually almost faints on the train, and there's this whole interior monologue of him being like, I should be strong, but oh my gosh, I almost fainted on this train. I'm not a strong person.
Mm-hmm.
And then they get to the factory and find out that the Gestapo has taken his dad away
Yeah.
for questioning. And Joe's reaction to his mom, because his mom is like freaking out and really sad, and Joe's reaction to his mom freaking out about his dad is very sterile
Mm-hmm.
and very just like, why are you upset?
Yeah.
Like,
It's fine. They've questioned him before or something like that. I can't remember what it is, but basically, she's like, it's not that big. He's like, it's not that big of a deal.
so he's talking to his mom about everything happened with his dad, and then that's when he reads the pamphlet, the Nazi pamphlet
Mhm.
that's talking about how disabled people or invalids or anybody
Yes.
are not, they're weak, quote unquote. And that's, I think, when he realizes, holy shit, I'm one of those people because I am now injured and disabled.
It says, the mentally retarded, unbalanced, and chronically ill were detrimental to society and had to be prevented from bringing more of their kind into the world. Populations of lowlifes must be sterilized as well, for generation after generation they remain poor and alcoholic.
Well,
But
what it
he was
is.
also saved because he was injured and disabled doing Hitler's work.
Yeah, but at the same time,
He was, no.
So
he's
I
still not
know.
treated the same.
So here's
I get
what it
but
says
in
exactly.
his mind.
Yeah.
So she's pissed because of the whole thing with the dad. And she ran to the sofa, pulled a pamphlet out from under the cushions, and thrust it into my midriff. Here, read this. This is what I have to look forward to. You and your dear Führer. I'm glad Uta died. I'm glad. If she hadn't, they would have killed her.
Yep.
And I sat down and read as she breathed hotly over me. The pamphlet said the parents of a handicapped baby had petitioned Adolf Hitler for the baby to be killed, after which he ordered the head of his personal chancellery to kill all other infants having biologic or mental defects, including those of up to 3 years of age, but later extending this to 16. It claimed 5,000 children had been killed by injection or deliberate malnutrition. And then he thinks about it later, and he's like, oh shit, I don't have an arm.
Yeah.
Maybe that's me. And he's like, oh no, but I'm Hitler Youth, so I'll be spared because of my, fidelity to the country, basically. He's like, they would never do that to me.
So I think we get to the point where the passport is found. So when he's rummaging through to find the puzzle, he finds a passport in his mom's sewing kit.
Mm-hmm.
And he opens it up, and it says Elsa Kor.
At first, I thought it was someone in my family when they were younger, but then I saw the J added on, as well as the name Sarah to Elsa Kor. My heart was pounding. Were my mother and father taking special care of this Jewish individual? Had they helped her to escape abroad?
Mm-hmm. Swiftly put it back together, closed the sewing kit, and acted like nothing had happened. But when he went back, the sewing kit was like just a regular sewing kit. All the passports were gone and everything. Do you think that his mom knew?
That he knew?
Mm-hmm.
I think she had suspicions.
She's pretty smart.
Yeah.
She's smarter than him.
She is. I think she had suspicions that he knew about her at least, or had an inkling of what was going on.
Honestly,
Do you think at that time she knew, or do you think she knew later on?
Later on.
Definitely later on, she probably had suspicions that he was at least onto it.
Especially with how stressed out she becomes later on in the book. I think she definitely realizes. So he finds it's not even a hole in the wall, the like makeshift cabinet door that she's literally living in a hole in the wall. The false door. He finds the false door that opens up into the enclosure where she's living in.
Yeah.
And there's a scene where he tries to stab her and backed out.
Mm-hmm. He like poked her with a knife, and there was a little bit of blood, but there wasn't enough to really call it a wound.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then after that, he started visiting her
on a regular basis.
And
swapping
and it just
stories.
Became a thing where he's like, hey, I'm just going to talk to this girl on my wall.
He was like, well, after all, what harm could she do to the Reich as long as she was closed up?
There's a lot of rationalizing that is not good rationalizing in this book, where he's like, wait, but technically she's my prisoner, so I'm doing the right thing because she's my Jewish prisoner. Yeah. It's like, fuck you.
He says it. He says, it was like having a woman as a prisoner in my own house, a Jew in a cage. Somehow it was exciting. At the same time, I was disgusted with myself because I failed to do my duty. She must have known the knife wasn't her foe anymore, because tears welled up in her eyes and she looked away, stupidly exposing her neck. I closed the panel and left. He's just, he does a lot of rationalization in this.
And he's like, I'm stupid because I couldn't kill her, not because, like, it's fucked up.
And that just shows how brainwashed he is. I mean,
he also realizes that he knows Elsa because Elsa was friends with Uta.
I think it took him a little while to realize it,
They practiced violin together.
I think it did too.
I think she might have brought it up. I don't remember.
Yeah, she did bring it up. She's because like, I know you. I used to watch you.
Yep, he's a couple years younger than her, which I think also adds to things that he's younger than her
Mm-hmm.
in the long run. But he realizes that he knows her because she was friends with his sister. And then he also realizes that Elsa, after talking to her, Elsa had been with them in that enclosure for a year before he found out.
Mm-hmm.
And she starts talking about her family and her fiance. She has a fiance named Nathan. And he becomes very jealous of Nathan.
I'm not gonna lie, I did not know that Nathan was a Jewish name.
Well, they don't say Nathan in the audiobook. They say Natan.
Nathan.
I mean, it's
Thank
spelled
you,
like-
Amber. I
Yeah.
like this.
It's spelled like
Because
Nathan. So,
yeah,
I mean,
Nathan. I like that more than Nathan.
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 Mm-hmm.
I've known a lot of Nathans. I've never known a Natan.
Yeah, it
Nathan.
sounds way better than Nathan.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, any Nathans out there. Your name's fine, but maybe change it to Natan.
I had a cousin
More exotic.
named Nathan. He probably would have been better if he was in that town. But anyway.
Does a name really change your behavior, though?
I fucking would hope so.
I think basically, though, it comes down to that's another human. I really think it comes down to that at the end of the day for him.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I don't think it's another human. I think because it's an older female that he's attracted to. I feel like if it was a boy,
It
I
would've
don't
been
think this
easier.
story would have happened.
Mm.
He would
Yeah.
have killed that boy. He would have killed that boy.
No, that's true. I think that is
But
true.
since it was
I
a
would agree.
female that he, like, as we continue to read, he is sexually attracted to
And could manipulate.
and controlling with,
Mhm.
that has something to do with it. And that's where I'm getting at, like...
It might have been different if it was a boy. I don't know if he would have killed him if it was a boy, but I
think it
think
would've.
the story would have ended differently for sure.
He
Well,
would have
one
not
of-
been so nice.
Yeah,
with
one
the
of the
boy.
things I actually wrote in the margins of the book was like, oh, he's jealous, but he's also in denial about a lot of things. Like, he's obviously attracted to her,
Mm-hmm.
but she's also fighting within himself about his indoctrination about what he should do with her. And obviously his attraction wins out.
Yeah.
So
For better or
basically,
worse.
his selfishness
Yes!
wins.
Exactly.
He gets jealous of Nathan or Natan. He gets very jealous about this. Like, he gets mad. He wishes that he was dead. Like, Natan was dead. He wishes that he was Natan. He's like, he gets all these weird
Natan.
feelings
Yeah.
toward him that it's like,
Make up your mind.
this is an imaginary fictional person to you, friend. Like, he's not even real to you. Except that he exists in Elsa's mind. He doesn't exist to you. You've never met him. And he hates him. But there's this part where she doesn't get cared for as much.
Mhm.
Yeah.
His mom doesn't take care of her as well.
I
for
wanted
a
to
while.
talk about that because this was interesting to
She
me
was
because
freaked out, yeah.
in all of the this was an interesting thing for Christine Leunens to add to this. I really think that she did her fucking research because can I say, like, in all the historical World War II stuff, it's like, yeah, people hid Jews in their houses and stuff. Good for them. But also the strain on the people that were hiding those Jews, the impact that they had was very negative. Because think about it, like, I don't have a specific quote, but his mom, after his dad left for a long time, she definitely neglected Elsa and started to hate her, I think. And I was like, wow, that's a very interesting way to think about it. Because in her mind, Johannes' mom's mind, at the beginning, she's like, yes, I want to save this person. But then it was like, oh my gosh, this is like just, it's too much. It's too much for me. I am so freaked out because my kid's a Hitler Youth and I have this other person in my wall. And she just started, I think she started to neglect her.
I think initially it was the need and the urge to do what was right. But then once she was doing that,
it was too much.
She realized how much was actually at stake.
Yeah.
And how much she had to change her own life. And that's what became the anxiety and the issue and everything else, especially when her own son was in the Hitler Youth and was indoctrinated into this belief. And she's literally hiding someone in the walls of their home.
Yeah.
And she's going without because she's trying to feed and protect this other person without anyone else knowing.
But yeah, she does talk about how she was like, I think she was talking to Johannes' father about it. Like, I can't do it. It's really hard.
Yep.
I wish she was Uta or something like that. I can't remember what it was.
Yeah, because she was channeling her energy for Uta into.
Yeah.
Elsa.
She's like, I felt like it was like taking care of Uta again or something, but I don't remember. Anyway.
So Johannes gives Elsa a flashlight because she talks about how it's so dark. And then we get to one morning, Johannes wakes up and the house has been graffitied in 05, which means Österreich.
O stood for Österreich in the way it was written 900 years ago, and E, the following letter, was the fifth letter in the alphabet, thus 05 or 05. In modern terms, the O and the E were replaced by O, hence Österreich. It was the code of the Austrian resistance, painted on political posters and administrative walls across town. I couldn't get my eyes off it. Our neighbors, Herr and Frau Bulgari, stood at their window also, and we eyed one another mistrustfully. It was evident to me that they knew.
Yeah, so their house got marked for being probably traitors.
But so did the neighbors.
Yeah, so did the neighbors.
But the neighbors didn't realize their house was also marked.
Yeah.
So they were like glaring at each other from across the way, but they were both marked.
But it wasn't until much, much later that anything happened to their household.
Johannes tries to kiss Elsa, and he is rejected.
As, honestly, he should be.
And in retaliation, he tampers with her food and clothes. Which is like, motherfucker.
So much
It's childish.
Yep.
It's so childish. It's like, dude.
Because then he put like a whole fuck ton of salt on it or something. Like,
yeah,
on her food.
he like salt. I don't remember what he did to her clothes, but he's like, you're not gonna kiss me. I'm gonna fuck with you.
He basically made it so they'd be itchy and uncomfortable.
He put soap in her food eventually later
yeah,
on, too.
Yeah. Okay, so his dad comes back.
I heard the knocker. By the time I got to the door, I expected to see no one still standing there, least of all my father. At first, I didn't recognize him because he'd lost weight, his nose was broken, and his clothing was as ragged and disreputable as a vagrant's. My next thought was, why the heck was he knocking on the door of his own house? The surprise on my face readily brought contempt to his. No, I'm not dead. Sorry.
Oh.
He was knocking because he literally didn't have the key to his house anymore.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I felt really bad for Johannes in that moment because, like, I know he didn't want his dad to die.
No, he didn't.
But that was how his dad greeted him when he came back from having the shit kicked out of him.
Dad detested what he had become.
Those interactions between he and his parents, those really hard, like, conversations that he's having and the rejection he's getting from his family are important to the story.
I think they tried to talk to him, but they were also trying not to be arrested.
Yeah.
So it was a very, very
vague
and hard subject to breach without going beyond to where they would be in danger. And even though they tried to talk to him, it was kind of too late at that point. The Hitler Youth had already gotten to him. Yeah.
So the whole neighborhood gets bombed.
They're hiding in their cellar.
But Elsa is not in the cellar. No. Elsa is still in the little hidey hole in the wall.
Because his parents do not act as if he knows that she's there.
Yeah.
And he is also acting as if he doesn't know she's there.
Yep.
So she's upstairs in the wall by herself. They're all down in the cellar, and the British are fucking bombing the shit.
And this is shortly after
Out
the
of the
kiss,
city.
right?
Yeah.
This is after the rejected kiss.
Yeah, and
shortly
he's
after.
like thinking about her, and he was like, I hope she fucking dies, but at the same time, he also hopes
He's
she
like, I
doesn't.
hope she's alive and we
like,
get married someday.
yeah, it was fucking weird. You know what? It's teenage guy bullshit. It's teenage children bullshit.
It's very much
hate
if
you,
I
but
can't
I
have
love
her,
ya.
nobody
Yeah.
else can.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He's very much in that.
But he never grows out of that.
He doesn't.
Which
He
we
doesn't.
will get to.
We will talk
Yeah.
about it. And then,
Their house survives.
yeah, their house
But
survives.
their neighbor's house does not.
No, all
The
of her
lady with the
birds,
birds?
die.
The boys.
Yeah.
That's me. I'm the lady with the birds.
You, I was like, oh,
She had so many
Say that her
birds.
I love my birds.
So Johannes' parents end up hiding Elsa in an even smaller enclosure.
That
in
was
the
a
Like it was
house.
like a floorboard, wasn't
Fucking
it?
They literally
sad.
said it's the size of a tomb,
Yeah.
which I
it's
think is morbid.
super fucking sad.
So this is where the part where I'm saying, like, they were trying to do good, but Elsa is literally a captive no matter what, and it's so fucked up because it's like no matter. Yes, these people are trying to save her, but at the same time, she is fucking either dead or in this like tomb-sized hole in the wall.
Well, his dad disappeared again because he went to work.
Yep.
And then he just fucking disappeared.
Yeah, his dad got taken to a concentration camp. Yep.
But
Work
didn't they say-
camp.
Yeah, but didn't they say they were like using him to like help with something?
They
With-
didn't say it was a concentration camp,
They
but
said
it
it was a work camp
Yeah.
and to help with the military production of different like artillery and things like that.
Yeah.
It's fucking concentration,
concentration
camp,
camp.
basically. So he was gone, and then his mom just kind of like gave up on Elsa. She hit her in the floorboards and then kind of left her.
Stopped.
Yeah, because and then she was like skipping around the house like nothing happened. Like she was just her old self. She wasn't all anxious and worried and shit. And he was like, there's something real weird about this. And so when he finally found Elsa in the floorboards, which is fucked, she was emaciated and basically on her deathbed.
Yeah.
Because
yeah.
his mom wasn't taking care of her anymore.
Right.
So this is a little bit of a long one, but I'm going to read it anyway. Even resting in her lining of soiled newspaper, she was to me as sensual as if she'd been in the sheets of our matrimonial bed. And I longed to touch her, to squeeze her, feel her as solid reality, not just another one of those frustrating samples coming and going in my mind. I believe she was mistaking me for my mother as she reached out for me to help her. Looking back, I see now what she'd intended, but at the time I took it to mean she was inviting me to lower myself onto her. I remember the excitement of thinking I was being beckoned into her enclosure and feeling her breasts through her nightgown separate under my weight as I leaned over onto her. And I admit, with shame, I experienced a premature climax.
Okay. I remember this now.
What page was that?
There's more. I'm not going to read more, but there's more.
I
was like,
not
dude,
okay with that.
What page
That's
was that on?
fucked up. Oh my gosh. It was,
Talk about take advantage of a person in a very precarious
well,
situation.
it's also like the fact that I could see someone having sympathy for someone in that, and like empathy and stuff, but the fact that he got aroused and actually ejaculated going into that, like next to her, that gave me the fucking creeps.
That's the
It was
difference between, I'm sorry, men and women. And women are usually more empathetic, and they're like, oh my god, let me like
Clean you.
clean
Love you.
help you,
Feed you.
like make you feel better, and then they're like, let me touch you, and I'm and you're like
Like that fucking grossed me the fuck out. I was like, you are
Okay.
a fucking creep. Her like she had soiled herself.
Yeah.
yeah.
And that still turned him on.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, you got problems.
It wasn't her as a person, her personality.
It's the power.
It was the power in her
Yes,
body. It
it's
was
the
that
power.
was it.
Yep.
It wasn't anything to do with her.
And honestly, I think all along that's what it was. It's the power. There is so much in this book where he's like, she's my prisoner, I control her. And the fact that he literally...
Because
it's fucked up.
He couldn't control anything else. He couldn't control his own destiny. Destiny, because he saw himself as a person who was invaluable because he was an amputee, and that he couldn't like contribute anything to society. So he thought, well, to me, he saw himself as the only thing he could control was her.
I think that. I also think she made him feel like he was human again.
Especially later on.
Yeah. There's a lot of like talk about that in the book, but there's chats about how she's not really bothered by his scarred face and all of this.
Yeah.
And so I feel like he thinks maybe she's the only person who's ever going to find him beautiful. So
oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely,
so there's this power play going on here where she's trapped. She can't go anywhere.
She doesn't have any options.
She doesn't
he's
have
the only
exactly.
option. Yeah.
He's the only option. She's trapped in a floorboard.
Compensating. He's compensating for something. Like
Kind
that's
of.
what I kind of think of it as. Like
It's kind of like that.
Like
and
I lost my power of being physically attractive,
Healthy.
and this person finds me physically attractive, but she's trapped.
She's trapped,
and I'm the only one that she knows, so I feel power because of that.
But did she actually find him attractive?
No.
Exactly. Yeah. He just told himself that.
Yep.
Yeah. That was not very clear. I was drunk slurring that.
I think her kindness was misconstrued as more than that.
How often does that actually happen in real life?
This is a complicated book.
It really is.
Mm-hmm. And
so this scene we just discussed is disgusting.
It's
like,
disgusting.
It is absolutely disgusting. I do not feel bad for Johannes in this scenario. I feel bad for Elsa in this scenario.
I think this scene is where I really was like, okay, so this has gone out of control.
Yeah, I think that was like the breaking point.
Because like before
he's
I was
not
like
innocent anymore. Yeah.
You're kind of a kid, and I kind of I guess I can kind of like resolve you of that. But like at this point, he knows she's in a disabled frame of mind.
Yeah.
I think this was my breaking point too, Sam.
This is when he starts using his power to corrupt and be manipulative.
Yeah,
for sure. So then
there's a turning point for Elsa as well.
We're getting really dark, guys. Everyone take a drink.
Lots of drinks.
We're getting
have
to
another
a dark
drink
point.
of the Jaeger. I feel great.
The Gestapo visited.
They should have had those Jaeger drinks because they're fucking delicious. I'm not
the Gestapo visited.
Yep, the Gestapo comes to the
house.
What
a fucking name.
Gafuckos.
It seems like they should be like the Gafuckos. It seems
Go
like
fuck yourselves.
And they're like, hey, there was a light on in the night.
What
That's
the fuck
what I was
y'all
talking about
doing?
with the light.
Yes, there was a light on.
Y'all
What's
know better.
Up with that? And they're like, we were all in the cellar.
Stop fucking around. What y'all know?
Y'all know better. Flash that light around. What the fuck?
Turn your lights off. God dang. They're bomb us and you just turn on your light. Oh, flippy flappy.
So they come in and they're like, guys, what the fuck? Why is your light on? They're like, I don't know. We were all in the cellar. And then they keep asking, and eventually Johannes is like, oh, I accidentally left my flashlight on upstairs.
Oh, I'm a ding dong.
It's one I used to read.
Yeah.
And so anyway, that's how they basically, I think that the Gestapo was onto them.
Thank you for Amber being
Thank you. Good for Johannes because he's not like giving up Elsa.
Actually,
but also at that point, if he gave up Elsa, then they would be dead too.
Mm-hmm.
So is it really not selfish?
He was saving everybody.
He was saving his whole family.
But he did
Yeah.
give Elsa a flishy flashy, so.
Flappity fish. Whatever I said, I don't even remember.
All right. So anyway, so we're gonna get to bad times now.
Okay.
So
It's bad times.
there's a lot of bad times.
Basically, Johannes is walking through the streets. He's collecting war materials. He was thinking of the Edelweiss pirates he'd seen in the newspaper just days before. That he'd seen a bunch of pirates hanging. They hung there as if they hadn't a care in the world, and I fancied them to be puppets. Imagine pulling their cords so they could come to life. Legs marching, arms swinging, heads bobbing. I pulled their cords harder so the couples jiggled, danced, jumpity jump, slapped ankles. Then I saw one of them was my mother, slappity slap dancing with another man.
Ugh.
So he found his mom hanging in the square.
Yep.
He was just tripping along one day, and there she was, hanging from fucking rope.
I do think he felt very guilty about his mom's death.
I think he felt guilty.
As he should.
And yeah, I think this was the point of the book, where I was like, I'm fucking over this book, but I'm gonna read more.
And so now his dad's been picked up at the factory. His mom has been hanged. So he has nobody but Pemmican, who is elderly.
And he doesn't know what actually has happened to his dad at this point.
Yeah.
No.
He still doesn't know what happened to his
Yeah,
dad
he
at
was
this
just
point.
picked up at a factory. That's all we know right now.
He has written to his dad and not received any response.
And also at this point, he becomes his mom a little bit because he has to be the caretaker
I was just about to
of
say.
his grandma and Elsa at this point.
Which is, can we just talk about how funny it was?
He had no fucking idea how to do anything.
Yeah, they were like, he's like, how do you make this meal? And she's like, this way. And he's like, she didn't tell me that you had to boil the potatoes first. And it was like,
There's a lot of chapters of him like going shopping and figuring out how to cook and like being like, this meal's not right, and then adding things to it. So that was really good.
It's him learning how to be a real
A
person.
person, yeah. Not a
But that's-
fucking soldier.
but
Yes.
also,
Or a child, yeah.
Yeah.
that's a really young age to take care of people.
Oh, 100%.
I cannot imagine having to take care of my family at age 13.
So then the war ends.
Yeah. And then he tells Elsa.
So
That it doesn't
he doesn't
end.
tell Elsa nothing.
Well, he does.
He does.
He
He
lies.
says we won.
Yeah.
He said Germany won.
Yeah.
Mhm.
No. So the war ends, and there's this whole. I think we need to do a build-up of this. Come on, let's look at our quotes, guys. Come on now.
Far away, there were explosive sounds like hundreds of firecrackers going off. Elsa straightened up and grasped her neck. What's going on? The time had come. My heart was pounding blood into my limbs, but it felt as if they were being drained. I sought the right words with difficulty, then said, without knowing what I was saying, we won the war. I was as unprepared as she was for this lie. It wasn't even a lie, not at least in that exact moment it was spoken. I don't know fully what it was, really. It was so many confusions balled up in one.
Oof.
So, like, part of him, I feel like, wanted to tell her, but the other part was like, if I tell her, I can't have her here anymore. She'll leave me. And at this point,
I think so too, yeah.
he's only got Pemmican, and he knows that his time with Pemmican is limited because she's elderly.
But he also realizes that the reason why his mother and father are gone are because of Elsa.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because had they not been involved with that, they probably would have been fine.
But it's not really because of Elsa. It's because
Oh.
they would have found someone else to take in.
Their efforts, yeah.
But he's funneling it onto her.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also thought it was interesting how Johannes, sorry.
Johannes.
Say Johannes, sorry.
To all the Johanneses
Talks about
out
the
there.
quote unquote foreign influence after the war, where it's like a combination where French, British, Russian, Austria, USA, like they all come together and kind of like
They split up his city into sectors.
yeah, and he like doesn't like it,
I think it's
and I
cop-out,
was
though.
like, wow, this sounds great. I would love that, but he's like, I fucking hate this change. All these people coming in with their languages I don't know, and like blah blah blah.
That's
Which
why
I
it's a
get, but it's
cop-out,
like
yeah.
you gotta adapt to that shit, dude. But he's just like a curmudgeon that doesn't want to do it, you
But
know?
that's very common, I think. Whenever, this is my life, this is where I live, this is how it's been for years, and then somebody else comes in and changes the way you're supposed to think. It's upsetting if you are suddenly exposed to something new.
He has
people
no...
don't like change.
He's just like, this is how I want it, though. He
Yeah.
has no wiggle room.
Okay, but can I say, as someone that has experienced a lot of gentrification, I kind of get his disdain.
No, I do too.
Oh,
Because
yeah, a little
like
bit.
This
people,
is his
they
home.
were like trying to like make things better, but they really weren't making anything better for the people that lived there at all, because they couldn't afford it
At
They
that
had
time, at that
nothing
point.
left.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the end, yeah, but at the time, nobody likes change.
They were outsiders infiltrating his neighborhood, his town, his country.
Yep.
They were not welcome, but they were imposing everything upon his people, himself, his home.
Yep.
Exactly. But I feel bad for Johannes in a way because he didn't get a childhood.
No.
That was ripped from him completely.
He lost his family. He
Yeah.
lost his neighborhood, his home, his town. Essentially, it meant, okay, so the house that he grew up in is still standing, but by the end of the book, there's nothing left.
His father is caught in Mauthausen, right? Mauthausen. He gets caught there trying to escape, and he is shot in the head. And Johannes finds out about this. So now he truly has lost his father.
Yeah.
But it's not until later that he finds about it, because he like even wrote to his dad and never got a response back.
So that's when he finds out about it.
Yep.
Is there in
Also,
this next part.
I want to... Okay. Whenever he finds about his dad's death, he also finds out about Hitler's suicide.
He does.
Which I think is interesting because that's kind of a correlation.
Mm-hmm.
Elsa has like this little like weird guilt. She asked, "Why isn't your father home if the war is really over?" I paced back and forth to buy some extra time. Then I simply uttered, "He's dead." Dead? Her hands cupped her nose and tears welled up in her eyes. Ach du lieber Gott, because of me that night? One thing led to another, and then, because of me, you have no more family. I sobbed only a matter of seconds because I got myself together. That is, my eyes still watered, but without making any more grimaces or noises. I still have Pimmikin, don't I? And I have you.
Okay. I got a thought.
Okay.
So, is she upset because she caused the death of his parents and all he has left is this old woman? Or is she upset because she's like, oh my god, this kid is like putting so much faith into me, and she obviously knows he cares about her like way more than just like a familial way.
Yeah. I think she felt guilty that he loves her and she does not feel that way about him.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Exactly. And then there is a conversation between his grandmother, Pimmy, because she kind of realizes that he's in love, quote unquote, with someone. And she's just doing the grandma thing, being like, hey, she's just asking him questions. He starts getting really defensive about shit.
She starts poking at him.
Poking at him.
And then she eventually goes to the Book of the Saints and starts asking him different saints names.
Yeah,
was
yeah.
funny.
She's like prodding him and stuff. And
I
he's
think
like,
she
"Meh, meh,
knew
meh."
more than she let on.
I think so too, because he
Probably.
also...
She's a smart woman. I think she knew what was going on the whole fucking time, but didn't say much.
Mm-hmm.
She's being very complacent, just to be complacent. Johannes does let Elsa move into the guest room. So then, Pimmikin almost finds Elsa because she's going upstairs. I think she knows about her. I think she knows, but she's not saying. But she was looking for a spare key, quote unquote.
She was already kind of guessing at what he was doing by bringing things upstairs or whatever past her. And Elsa, at that point, after the parents were gone, she was coming out into the guest room and not staying in the wall the whole entire
She definitely
time.
knew. Yeah. So Pimmikin falls down the stairs.
Mm-hmm.
She does not die, thankfully.
Mm-mm.
She just falls down the stairs. And there's an interaction between Johannes and Elsa about that.
And she's like, WTF, what's the noise
And
upstairs?
Johannes fucking gaslights her.
Yep.
Do you remember that?
Yep.
He's like,
She
you only care
knows.
about yourself. It's like,
She
dude,
fucking knows.
Elsa is like fucking holed up in this room by herself, and you're blaming your grandma's fall on her. Like,
You'd
what
risk
the fuck?
my grandmother's life and my own. This seems to be your specialty.
There's more.
Yeah, I know. It's constant. He gaslights her a lot.
Yeah.
She also gaslights him.
Yes,
Oh,
she does.
definitely later, yeah, for sure. Elsa asked him for newspaper clippings, and this is when Johannes, she actually kisses him at this point,
Yeah.
right?
But it's not like
close to this.
it's not like a romantic kiss though.
No.
It's like, I'm gonna kiss you because I feel like that's what you want. There's
Yeah.
no feeling behind it.
Yeah, and then he says, "I was trapped in my lie as much as she was."
I handed her the box of carefully selected clippings, minus any articles condemning the Nazis' doings. Yeah.
Just take that out of there,
Just
please.
forgot about those.
Just take that out. It's fine.
He had gone to see if she had any family left. Moselkor died after 16 January 1945, forced march from Auschwitz to Mauthausen. And that was her dad. Nadja Goldakor, nie Hauptglauber, Mauthausen, gassed October or November 1943. Natan Kayam Kaplan died 6 January 1942. All those years, he, my greatest threat, had been dead before I'd even known Elsa.
I feel he's like threatened by something that he has no right to be threatened by.
My question is, do you think he has relief that he's dead and
Oh,
that
most
they're
definitely.
dead?
Oh, yeah.
Because now he is the only person she truly does know.
Yeah.
There's a part where he tries to, I think, win Elsa over with like
Some bullshit.
some bullshit, but like what's the thing? Like material things.
Yeah, like
So
he was
he-
buying her like paints.
He
and-
goes to it. Well, first he goes to a
This-
jewelry store. And do you remember the jewelry store?
They were rude to
interaction?
him.
Well, in his interpretation, they were rude to him, which they probably were a little bit. But he got pretty women hating with the people at the jewelry store. He's like, I want to buy something for my girl. And they were like, well, what do you want? And he's like, I don't know. They were like, you need to know what your woman wants. And he got all freaked out by that because they were like,
I don't think that's woman hating. I
fraternizing
think
with
that's
people.
them being
No,
honest.
No, that's fine. After he got out of the jewelry shop, he said, I took the long boulevard, scoffing each time I saw Austrian girls getting cuddly with the French, probably so they wouldn't get in trouble if they were pinned for their war deeds. Superficial blonde bitches, I thought, and not even real blondes, most of them mousy browns, who bleached their hair. I passed by close enough to have slapped them, standing there in the arms of the enemies who defeated their husbands, fathers, brothers. Whores! My heart cried out all the more for Elsa.
Okay, this is
So
where,
that's what I'm saying. It's like, okay.
this is where we get into that incel shit.
Yes! I want to talk about incel shit.
Okay, so he wasn't mad that they were disdainful to him. He was mad because he honestly didn't know the fuck what she wanted.
Yeah.
He didn't know Elsa.
That's what I'm saying, girl.
But he took it out on them.
Yeah.
Because he didn't want to take responsibility for the fact that he was obsessed with a woman he had no idea about.
There is a lot of things. I told Amber, like, we were playing racquetball the other day.
She had to define incel for me because I had no clue.
And I was like,
These
girl,
old bitches
Johannes
playing
has
racquetball.
incel behavior. And she's like, what's an incel? I'm like, dude, it's a guy that hates women because they don't want to be with him. Like, that's like the Cliff Notes version. And there's so much in this book that is incel behavior.
Yep.
I mean, yeah.
Like, he's the epitome of an incel.
Part
And
of it,
that's one reason why I don't sympathize with him a lot.
part of it though is to me it's like, does he not know any better because he hasn't had any other kind of example. His dad
He's
was...
had his parents' example.
His dad was
but they were
gone
also
all the
whisked
time.
away a lot, yeah.
And his dad did not show his mom the type of love that we think is, like, normal. It was very, like, austere and purposeful. It had a rhyme and a reason. It wasn't, like, love. You know? So, like, for him, it was a procedure thing. Growing up, it seemed like it wasn't an emotional thing.
It's kind of like that for a lot of kids. They struggle with emotions. So at age 10 is whenever he's had all this brainwashing going on. I'm not defending Johannes. I just want to make sure that because he's fucked up. He is. He's a terrible character.
He's very fucked up.
He's a terrible character, and a lot of his choices are just shit. But I also want to make sure that we cover our bases with just how it was that they went about really fucking these kids up.
This is one point that I did feel sorry for Johannes. Because he had to go back to school.
Yeah.
But then he started skipping school because he felt insecure there. Because they're taking all these kids that were in Hitler Youth and then integrating them into normal school again. And they didn't like it because they were like, wait, I feel dumb because I've missed out on how many years of education.
Yeah.
So here's a quote for that. Johannes says, "Not only me, but everyone my age and others older than us, as it was, decided that none of us had received a proper education, meaning we were considered ignorant, and that couldn't have been more humiliating."
Mm-hmm.
And also, think about it, he had lost one of his arms, which was his writing arm. His hand was the writing hand.
It was his left hand.
He was a lefty.
Was he a lefty?
He was a lefty because he started practicing writing.
Oh, yeah, I remember. He had a hard time writing
he started
again.
practicing writing after his mom died. So he was supposed to write on a chalkboard at school, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he practiced on paper. But chalkboard's different because it's vertical, 90 degrees.
It's just a different medium. It totally works differently than a pen.
It does.
On paper, I'd made progress, but writing on vertical medium felt like starting from zero again. It never occurred to her that I wasn't right-handed, and in front of everybody, she asked if they'd ever taught me how to read and write. Mm-hmm. So I felt bad for him then.
That's embarrassing, yeah.
Yeah. But
I'm a little asshole, though. If that was me and I'd been like...
throw the chuck at that teacher.
writing with my hand that was obviously not my dominant hand, I'd be like, yeah, but it was fucking blown off.
Well, and also lefties, like, they would have thought, oh, you're a right-handed person. It's like, no, he's a left-handed person and his left hand got blown off. Mm. He's writing with his right hand. Like, there's a lot of things.
Well, they purposely used to, like, punish people that were lefties and like writing with the right hand. So with him, they probably assumed his right hand was his normal dominant hand.
Yeah.
And they were like, "Are you stupid or what?"
Yeah.
No, I'm just disabled.
Yeah. And at that time, people didn't treat disabled people right either.
You may as well just been stupid.
Yep. Mm-hmm. So this is the point where Johannes starts giving Elsa he gives Elsa his mom's fur coat. Mm-hmm. And then he starts buying her paint supplies and canvases.
And he doesn't really have the money for this.
No, but he just keeps on getting, because they're expensive.
There was a point where she asked him for snow.
Yeah.
And he had to, but it wasn't snow from outside. It had to be snow from a certain neighborhood.
Yeah.
And he trekked across the fucking town to get it and brought her back, like a basket full of water or some shit.
And there was also a point where she asked him to go pet a horse and come back so she could smell it. Her.
Yeah, I'm like, girl,
so then I'm like, okay, this relationship, he made this relationship toxic though. Like, it was not her.
She had me fetch her heavy textbooks, and 1 out of 2 I was obliged to return. It wasn't biology she'd ask for. It was botany. It wasn't Latin. It was the history of Latin. And so, like, she has him doing all of these, like, mundane tasks, which, I mean, she's bored. Totally fine. Cool. Great. Also, I felt like she was sending him on wild goose chases because she fucking was punishing him because she knew what was happening.
Because she could, yeah.
What would you do if you're walled up in a fucking wall?
Yeah, but we're going to get to that again here in a minute, even further.
I think she realized that he would do it, and so she was like, well, if he's gonna fucking do it, why not?
Yes.
I think he just has a fucked up...
I mean, he obviously doesn't feel like he's attractive enough for normal, everyday people out on the street. So I feel like he sees Elsa as his only option because she's no longer out in, like, the real world. So it's either him or nothing.
Yeah.
Which is not good.
It's like, I can wear her down if I give her everything she wants.
It's just a very, very tragic relationship. Yeah. They shouldn't be in this relationship. It never should have happened. The circumstances literally shoved them into a house together, and then it just continued.
I guess at that point, it's very, I guess, what the incel crowd would say, simping. Because
what does that mean?
Well, it's like basically...
I've heard that term, but I don't know what it means.
It's basically catering to women's every will because, you know, they think that they can't get anything better, but women aren't good enough for you kind of thing. Mm-hmm. It's stupid bullshit. So, like, him going out and buying her every whim and using his very little money on her to buy, canvas and paints that she's not even, like, really good at. And just
but she
wastes.
ends up being good at it, though.
Does she, though?
She ends up doing some portrait that's good.
I don't think it was good. I think it was just, like, recognizable.
Yeah.
And then he was, like, mad because she was using the canvases to, like, wipe her brushes on and crap. And he was mad about that. But he didn't tell her to stop. He didn't make her stop. He didn't stop buying canvases. And so he just kept giving into her every whim. And that was like, that's considered simping. That's bullshit. It's
if you think about it, he was ultimately suppressing her. Because she wanted to be creative. So he gave her something to be creative about, but not... Like, how do you be creative in a fucking wall? Yeah. And then... Because she wasn't even allowed... Oh, wait, she's not a good artist? Like, what the fuck?
She wasn't even allowed to look out the window,
because the way that he talked about her, it's like, oh, she didn't even have good art. It's like, well, what do you fucking expect? You're suppressing her.
So then he gets into this part with Pimmican. He says her name. He says, her name is Elsa. And then she says, Johannes, you're not well. Promise to seek help from a doctor. Listen, grandmother. Listen, you, young man. You've become sick. I don't mean your body. It's fine. It's healed. Nothing's wrong with you in that sense. I mean an ailment in your mind, a mental trauma. Remember the girl who used to play violin with Uta? Mm-hmm. No, and I don't want to hear any more nonsense. Mutter and Vater hid her during the war. Didn't you know? Pimmican looked at me in dread and confusion, not knowing whether or not to believe me or else not wanting to. She's still upstairs. I never told her we lost the war. So we go through, like, this whole big thing of exchange where he actually tells his grandmother that she exists. And her response is, Johannes, the Gestapo would have found her out. They knew about your parents. Where would you be hiding this little girl? Johannes says, she's not a little girl anymore. She's a woman. My grandmother wiped her watery eyes and replied, she doesn't exist. She never became a woman. And I sat and I was like, what if all of this is some, like,
fever dream
fantasy he's made up of this little girl who didn't make it? That they actually came in and they killed her. And, like, at this part of the book, I was like, I swear to God, if he goes upstairs to that fucking room and she's not there, I'm gonna lose my shit.
You know what? Actually, Amber, I thought about that at one point too, where I'm like, is he hallucinating?
Yeah, is he hallucinating another human?
I did actually think about that, yeah.
This was a human being that I knew once, and I know that she was Jewish, and so I made up a whole other world in my head.
See, I didn't have that thought, because in my mind, I thought Pemmican probably knew, but she's also not wrong about the Gestapo. Like, they were intense, and if they had any inkling that you were hiding someone, they either killed you and tore your house apart, or they basically punished your family. So I think he just happened to be lucky because he was part of the Hitler Youth and like obviously portrayed himself as a strong believer.
So then, shortly after that, Elsa tries to poison herself with paint.
That sounds like, honestly, it sounded like when she did that, it was just like, well, I have nothing else.
It was a cry for help.
To hurt myself with, so
well,
I'm just gonna eat this paint.
Did paint still have lead in it at that time?
Probably,
yes,
yeah.
Definitely.
I think it was
post-World War II.
I'm Googling.
Was it the 80s that they stopped putting lead in paint?
In 1909, Austria, Belgium, and France became the first countries to ban lead-based interior paints.
1909?
Interior paints.
Between 1920 and 1930, France, Austria, Belgium, and Greece banned the use of all lead in all consumer products.
All right.
So there was no lead in this paint. She just poisoned herself with paint.
She just drank a bunch of paint?
Yeah, which I'm sure is not good for you. I don't think it was fucking watercolors, you know?
It was oil-based paint.
Yeah.
But her teeth were dyed green. I remember that in the description.
Yeah.
And then Pemmican dies.
Yeah.
Which is real sad.
It was because he basically said,
sad.
I think
he
he
forgot
felt
about
guilty.
her for 3 days.
Yeah, I think he felt guilty about that too.
He should.
He went to take care of Elsa, and he was so focused on making sure she didn't die that he forgot to check on Pemmican, and he went down to check on her, and he found out that she was dead.
He cared too much about what his dick could be put in compared to his grandmother.
Mm-hmm. So, after Pemmican dies, Johannes gives Elsa reign of the entire house, but she has to crawl on her hands and knees to avoid windows.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of funny, I'm not gonna lie.
That's not funny.
She's like a cat.
That's fucked up, dude.
But the war's over and she has no clue.
I just envisioned them army crawling all around the house, and I thought it was funny.
Because I thought of it as like a dominating thing.
Oh.
That's a controlling fucking
I thought they
thing.
were all kind of doing it.
That's fucked
I just
up.
kind of thought it was funny. Like a kid. It was a very childish thing.
I think she knew. Don't interrupt. The truth is, you don't need me at all. Not one single bit. But before I go on, I want you to know that everything I did up until now, I did only because I love you. Even if it was wrong because it was based on a lie. The truth is, I'm not helping you at all. I'm destroying you. She rushed to me and hugged me. No, don't say it. It's not your fault. Yes, it is my fault. It's my fault because, no, you've been kind to me and I doubted you. And so, like, there's this big long thing where every time Johannes goes to tell her that he's been lying to her this whole time, she's like, no, don't tell me the truth. No.
Yeah.
No, blah.
Well, there was there was that one big time when they had sex.
There's a couple times, but this one in particular was the first one that I know of.
Well, but here's the thing. I think it's because of the Stockholm Syndrome.
I don't think it's Stockholm Syndrome. Okay, so while I understand that there is a captor, I understand there's a captive situation there, but is it that she is afraid to leave because this is the life she knows and she doesn't know what's outside of this house? She doesn't know what lies in wait for her. Her parents could be dead for all she knows. They fucking are, by the way. We know that. Her boyfriend is dead. Her whole life, as she knows it, had imploded. Has imploded. She doesn't know what's on the other side of that door. I think she knows damn well that the war is over.
Can I ask you something?
Yeah.
In the grand scheme of this book, who do you think is the ultimate victim?
Elsa.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. She is the ultimate victim. I also do not think that anyone in this book is a protagonist.
Yeah.
I actually think both Elsa and Johannes are antagonists to each other.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yes.
Do you think the same thing?
I absolutely think
Okay,
the same thing.
thank you. Because I think the same thing.
I do not think Johannes is a good guy.
I am definitely not pro Johannes, but I'm glad that you I get it, but it's not great.
It's not. I'm
definitely more Elsa than Johannes.
I'm neither.
I'm neither. I
Really?
cannot stand either of them.
No.
I think they are both really bad people.
I think Johannes made Elsa the way she is, though.
I do not.
Think so.
I do.
I do not.
I think he did.
I like that we have this.
How would you cope being in a fucking wall for 10 years? How would you cope with that?
I think eventually I would fucking kill myself.
Yeah, I'd ate the paint.
Mm-hmm. I'd have found a way to kill myself. I mean, she tried, and then he saved her, and like he still gaslit her. So what is she supposed to do other than manipulate him?
That's what I'm saying.
To her own.
I'm pro Elsa, not fucking Johannes.
I'm not pro anybody in this story.
Mm.
If
They're
I had
both
to take
wrong.
if I had to take a side, I would take Elsa.
I can't take either side. I think they're both really bad.
I'm pro Pimmican.
I'm pro Kimmy. I'm pro Kimmy too. She was probably the best character in the book, if we're being real.
adored her. Yes.
Okay, so let's do that. We are pro Pimmican.
Yes.
Mhm.
She was the real protagonist.
She was her OG.
I really do think that Elsa had an idea that it was open.
Especially after Pimmican died and she
Yeah.
full reign of the house and she could
go
downstairs where she could literally hear people talking outside. Like there's no way that she couldn't have
yeah, she knew.
misinterpreted
There's a
that.
paragraph. I gotta find it where it talks about her PTSD of her feeling more comfortable sleeping in the walls of the house.
Yeah, she slept there for a while.
I'm trying to find it. I can't find it.
What a jolt I experienced the first time I found an empty room and thought she jumped out the window. Of all places, I found her in the last place I would have looked, and did, back behind the wall. She did this to me more than once, and each time she scared me half to death. She claimed she felt better there, safer really, and that she felt lost and tended to panic and too much empty space. What good does it do me to be out, she asked, when the whole time I concentrate on being ready to jump back in.
And that brings me back right around
It's PTSD.
to how much of it is that she doesn't know what's beyond the door and doesn't want to leave because she doesn't know.
Yeah. At that point, also, is she comfortable in her misery?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, and also, that just broke my heart that I feel more safe being behind a wall than outside.
Mm-hmm.
That's so fucked up.
Fear of the unknown is probably one of the greatest, concerns I have with lots of the people that I help with.
I mean, how many times do people that get kidnapped and are held for years, they're so afraid to leave wherever they're being kept because they're what if they catch me? What's going to happen to me then? It's always the worst.
But it's they're usually 2 feet away from civilization.
Exactly. I mean, she really wasn't that much further, to be honest.
Yeah. No, she knew.
Yeah.
I think she did know.
She knows.
And thus begins the really toxicity of their relationship and the severe gaslighting that they have. And is it after
she cooks him a meal? Do you remember that? And so once she read in a cookbook how to make my favorite Austrian dish, which Bavarians claim Bavarian and purists check before the empire appropriated it. crispy roast pork with red cabbage. She had a ball, so to speak, preparing a servettenodel, a giant ball-like dumpling made out of stale bread wrapped in a tea towel and boiled in water, which is what we had for our dinner this evening.
And it was delicious.
It was really yum. I knew she was making a double effort. 1, to cook. 2, to deprive herself of what she cooked, in particular, the crisp pork. But once she'd tasted it, her diet was forgotten. Thereafter, we ate the same meals from the same pot. I was pleased with this romantic turn of events, that is, until we both started putting on weight.
Okay.
I have an issue. Like,
All right,
first.
yeah. No, I think our issue is the same. He keeps talking about her gaining weight.
Yeah!
Yep.
And he's like, oh, wait, she was like...
It's
Yeah,
like, she's
she
gonna be
gained
fucking
weight because
frail
you're
and
giving her
emaciated
fucking
because she was
food.
literally living fucking floorboards in a wall.
Yeah! And that's the thing that a lot of dudes do. They're like, I can be as fat as I fucking want, but you have to be stick as a figure. It's like, no.
As stick as a figure. Drunk Lauren's great.
But he also indulged her so she wouldn't be attractive to other men.
Yeah, he intentionally did this.
No.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
There's
Because she doesn't know anything else.
Mm-hmm.
But then he's like, I hate her because she's fat. It's like, you're a fucking monster.
Yeah, he would always talk about her, like her just weight
She's
and
a
shit.
fuck.
And I was like,
And here's
oh
the
my God.
thing. We are all about all the weights, all the figures, all the
weights.
things.
Mhm.
We don't give a shit.
bodies are
I'm
beautiful,
just saying,
baby.
this fucking dude, you could tell. He's like, I loved her when she was emaciated and pooping on herself. But as soon as she got fat and wasn't pooping on herself and could eat her own meal,
Nobody could be attracted to
she
her.
not sexy. That guy sucked. I'm sorry. I do not like Johannes. I do not
Okay.
like
I love your
Johannes.
reaction. Thank you for being on our side. So that there was that going on. And then there was also he's actually having to be an adult. He's running out of money. He can't find a job. He is selling furniture and parts of the house because he
Like the brass knocker and like
like the cornices,
fancy door trimmings.
Yeah, it's like bizarre. So he finally gets like a real estate agent to try and list his house. An architect takes interest, but it's a while before like that even goes through. So
Sorry,
he
Sam.
buys her a bird in a cage,
Oh,
which
yeah.
upsets her very much, and it should. And she took it as a casus belli, which apparently is Latin for occasion of war or provoking and justifying war. And they have another fight about the bird and how it shouldn't be kept in a cage. It's like God's natural thing. It should be able to fly free and all these things. But it's like basically an analogy of her seeing herself as the bird living in this cage, and she's very upset about it.
Yeah.
And she almost takes it as him mocking her.
Yeah, because
He
he
just doesn't realize it,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
he's
Which
too
is-
dumb to realize it.
Yeah.
fucked up.
And he
Yeah.
is just too dumb to realize it. He thought he was doing something nice, but very much like the bird, by the time of the end of the novel, at first the bird is afraid to fly away. And it just wants to be fed. It thinks it's going to be fed. It's very nervous when she tries to snare it with her hand, and it's like, hell no, I just thought you were gonna give me some food. And she eventually grasps it with both hands and gently takes it out to the windowsill, and it pauses and hesitates before it flies away. How is that not a foreshadowing of her own predicament?
Story. Yeah.
So basically, he allows this bird to go free. It hesitates at first on the windowsill. And it's like, what do I do? And then it eventually flies out. And then he goes to the lady's house that like hoarded the birds that got bombed. And there's like bird carcasses still left over in the rubble. And he pulled this rubble carcass out. And then he stuck the bird carcass into the caged bird's cage and stuck the wing out and then gave it to her. And was like, here, see, I told you. And manipulated her into feeling terrible about setting this bird free.
You should not go outside because if you go outside, you're gonna
die,
fucking bitch. Yeah.
And he even knew that it was way too soon to have done that because the bird's body had decomposed way too much compared to what it would have been. But she didn't get close enough to even like register
she probably
that.
didn't realize that.
No, it was like very traumatic for her.
Yeah, she didn't register it because
she thought she killed this bird. He did a really fucked up thing.
I mean, I even made a note. It was like manipulating a an unnecessary trauma inflicting.
Yeah, it was terrible.
Very purposely did it, and he knew he did that on. Like he just was like, I'm gonna do this, and I don't care.
Anyway, so I had a. Christ on a cracker.
We could probably do with some crackers, I'm not gonna lie.
I think that a couple of us are really intoxicated. Pizza sounds good. So they have very different views of love, and this actually is talked about just before the bird. So it's the greatest proof of love I can give you. This is her. She's basically telling him, I'm gonna leave and it's okay. Like, you're free to get rid of me. I'm gonna go. You don't have to have me around. And he's like, you could be killed.
That happens a lot, actually, it seems like.
Yeah. It's the greatest proof of love I can give you. I'm willing to sacrifice my life to give you freedom. It's the very definition of love, giving one another space and freedom. Love isn't possessive, a way of caging someone in for your own sake. Love doesn't bind one to another. Love is free and liberating as the air, the wind, yes, as God's light. So that's Elsa's view of love.
Which I honestly would agree with more than his.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
His view of love is, that isn't love at all. Love means two people staying together no matter what. Love is glue, the strongest glue there is, that sticks two people together. One doesn't just get rid of the other because it's easier running on two legs than stumbling along on four.
Gross.
It's not selfish for one to want the other there is with him. That's love. You must love the person you say you love. You must stay with him. Love is a tight bond, two becoming one, not some loose, open pig pin.
In fairy tales, sure.
No. In fairy tales.
It doesn't matter if you love someone. I said this the other day. So, love is not conditional.
No.
But your ability to live with someone based on their actions is completely conditional.
I would agree with that 100%.
Anyway, they end up moving to an apartment.
Because they sell the house.
They sell the house. They move to an apartment. And he puts her in like a fucking crate.
It was like a trunk with holes cut in, like drilled into it like a fucking animal.
Yeah.
That she really couldn't fit into. She
had to like
herself into it like a fucking puzzle piece.
Yeah.
It was a 2-room flat besides the kitchenette and bathroom.
But didn't he look for a place that didn't have windows?
That's why he like took a top floor flat too, is because to him he thought it'd be, oh well, there's less chance of people hearing her because there wouldn't be a top and a bottom, but people still heard them arguing later on, like from the bottom floor.
Probably have paper thin walls.
Yeah.
They lived in a shabby little apartment. It was what he could afford, so it was not well constructed.
Yeah, because he even, like, in the book it even stated, like, oh, he could buy a nicer flat that was bigger and all these things, but then they would have to live impoverished and he would eventually have to go back to work.
Yeah.
So they took the smaller flat.
And the neighbors, they know about Elsa because they hear her. But Johannes keeps on denying it. He's like, oh no, it's just me. But they ask him, like, how's the missus doing and stuff? And he's like, what? What are you talking about?
He got a cat to try and cover up with the neighbors that he just had a cat up there.
The
he
noise
was like,
in the conversation. He was talking to the fucking cat instead of like a person.
Yes. So he's really trying to hide Elsa from the neighbors. He gets her this big fat fucking yellow cat to
Big old orange kitty.
Yes, to hide all the noise that's being made. He's like, "Oh, there's a cat."
And then Johannes and Elsa start becoming more distant from each other because, like, being in this close of quarters, they're even in closer quarters now than they were whenever they were at that big house. So it's like now their disdain for each other is really showing because they can't fucking escape each other. So like they'll have a good day here and there, but like there's nothing between them anymore. They're just so, their relationship is just blah. There's something about, like Johannes was saying, they had one good day where they had like a nice breakfast and stuff like that, but then there's something with the shower that happened with Elsa. That was weird.
She had run water, right?
Mm-hmm.
She'd run the water over the tub, and it was dripping into the...
So there wasn't an actual tub. It was like a wash basin she had like kind of ripped the shower head away from the wall. It was like weird. It seemed like she ripped it away, but I don't know if it was just like one of those ones that was like, oh, the shower head's movable or whatnot. But it was overflowing regardless.
Yeah, and it was dripping down into the next apartment. All the neighbors were pissed, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they all came up to see if they would clean it up. And didn't they go in and Elsa was just like stark-ass naked?
Yeah, naked in the fucking chair. And they're like, okay. And, you know, some of the men, they were like, one in particular,
lingered too long.
Yeah, they were like, kind of like, oh, is he like beating up with her? They didn't even know she was there for sure. And then there she was, titties out and everything. You're like,
yeah.
And he was like, oh my God. And he was making excuses saying, oh, she's not in her right mind. She's not in her right mind. Mm-hmm. And they're like, okay.
So he insinuated that she was probably in a relationship with the guy who lingered too long, right?
Mm-hmm.
What did you feel about that?
I feel like the thing with Johannes with the neighbor where he thinks that him and Elsa had a thing, I think it's just all in Johannes' mind, and it's all about his insecurities and stuff, honestly, because I feel like Elsa wouldn't, I don't know, she's so closed off, I don't think she would even try to have a relationship with anybody else at this point. But like in Johannes' mind, he like senses something between her and this one of his neighbors, and he gets all paranoid. And then because of the shower incident, Johannes, he got some kind of job somewhere, some fucking factory, I don't know, but he ended up locking Elsa in some room for punishment because he felt like he couldn't trust her because after the shower thing. And then he comes back from work and there's a crowd around his apartment building.
And there's like all these people at the base of the thing. There's like an ambulance or some shit, and like everybody's crying, and he's like, oh God, because he sees the window open and he thinks Elsa's jumped out, and I really thought she did too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, me too.
But it was just the cat, and it died too. It was terrible.
Carl.
Do you think Carl died because she tossed his ass out?
I fucking think she threw him out the window.
I thought she did too. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, he's like, he must have just jumped out and to his death. And I'm like, I think she fucking chucked him out the window.
Cats know better than that. So
yeah.
I really think she threw his ass out.
And then finally, Johannes confesses to Elsa about how he was lying to her and how the war ended. I think at this point it was like 4 years ago or something that it ended.
He started like choosing newspapers at random and reading them to her. By then, Elsa was holding her side. Thus encouraged, I pointed to a third headline and pretended to read, Man hides woman. Once upon a time, there was an Austrian man who loved an Austrian woman so much he hid her from the world, or hid the world from her. He risked his life in doing so. Elsa aimed a second pillow, and behind her good play, a threat glinted in her eyes. but not the way she thought. In truth, Austria had been in the hands of the victors for 4 years. The city that was split in two was Berlin. Elsa, her arms still in the air, dropped her pillow, and behind her last bit of jittery laughter was a trace of bitter relief or perhaps overripe deception. For a long time she contemplated me with an expression that was both regretful and deeply concerned, as if wondering not what would become of her, but rather, this time, of me. And then the last chapter of the book is like basically him plotting to take her away to like some fucking desert exotic island or something.
Mm-hmm.
But instead he comes home after he leaves work, right? He quits his job. And he comes in.
She's gone.
She's gone.
He had changed locks at one point to where he only had the key. Mm-hmm. And at that point, while he was gone, she basically had chiseled her way out to where the deadbolt or whatever, it wouldn't have mattered. And she could undo it. And she was gone. And she never came back.
He said I would win her back if I had to search every house and flat in Vienna to find her, then convince her to give me a second chance, scoop her up and carry her away by the force of my feelings.
Johannes rents out the apartment to try to get someone else to live there so he gets more money. And then the book ends with him saying, that's why I wrote this book that you are reading now. So yeah, it kind of ended weird. Like, not weird, but like... But just like, well, that's how it is, you know?
I don't think there was a happy ending there.
I don't think there was a real ending either.
Pimmican got the happiest ending of all. She died in her sleep.
Sometimes.
So, are y'all ready for the movie adaptation portion of this episode?
Lauren, the question isn't are we ready for it, it's are you ready for it?
Yes! The movie adaptation of Caging Skies is called Jojo Rabbit and was released in 2019. It has a 7.9 star rating on IMDb. It is directed by Taika Waititi.
I love him.
I never know how to say his name.
Who also plays imaginary Hitler in the film, which
so
we'll
funny.
get into. We will get into that.
It's so fucking funny.
Taika is from New Zealand and has also directed, produced, written, and starred in many films in New Zealand and America, including What We Do in the Shadows, and Thor, Ragnarok, and Love and Thunder.
Love and Thunder is ridiculous.
Never seen
Please enjoy.
any of those, but I am down with those because he is cute as fuck.
Why did you say Ragnarok like that?
I don't know how to say it. How do you say it?
Ragnarok.
Ragnarok.
Mm-hmm.
Did she say Ragnarok?
I don't even remember. Ragnarok.
Ragnarok.
Ragnarok. Christine Leunens helped Taika write the screenplay for Jojo Rabbit. Roman Griffin Davis plays Jojo. Scarlett Johansson plays Rosie, his mother. Thomasin McKenzie plays Elsa. And Sam Rockwell and Rebel Wilson play Hitler Youth officials. The movie won an Oscar for Best Adapted Screenplay and overall had 52 wins and 129 nominations for awards ceremonies. That's a lot. That's a lot.
To be fair, it was an excellent film.
Yeah.
So this movie, it's kind of like the everything. It's kind of like the everything is illuminated thing, where like the book was way more dark and serious than the movie. The movie took more of a comedic approach, I think.
I liked the movie because it was the ending I wanted. It was the relationship I wanted. It was what I wanted to see from them. The book was very toxic. The film was more of a
light childhood kind of fantasy.
Yeah, it was childish and happy, and it was just nicer. A lot of the same things happened, but nothing happened the same either.
Also, the movie only covers the first half of the book. It ends whenever the war ends, and Jojo tells Elsa that the war ends. He doesn't lie to her. So that's another part that's oh, okay, because the second half of the book is the really dark part whenever he's holding her hostage and shit,
Well, I think that the imaginary Hitler was the whole him going back and forth about his indoctrinated beliefs and then what he really felt as a normal person.
I could see it being written in a way where it was kind of off-putting, but the way that they wrote it, it was you're just making fun of Hitler at that point, so why not? And there's actually a quote. Okay, this is from Wikipedia. Searchlight decided that they would only make the film if Waititi portrayed Adolf. Waititi reluctantly agreed and recalled being embarrassed on set. He also stated he did not do much research on Hitler, quote, because I just didn't think he deserved the effort. The cast members recalled being shocked the first time they saw Waititi dressed as Adolf. So that's interesting that, their stipulation was we'll only make this movie if you play him. That's interesting.
He's funny, but he also had the right hair color, the eyes, skin color, everything as Hitler.
His eyes are brown,
He
though.
didn't have the eyes, though.
He wore blue contacts in one scene, but his eyes are brown.
Yeah.
Hold up, my whole life has been a lie. I thought Hitler's eyes were brown.
No.
I thought he had brown eyes too, but
'Cause I
apparently he
always
has
thought
grayish blue eyes that I
he looked
never had any fucking idea. But you only see him
Everything's
in
in
black and white. Yeah.
But he always looked like he had shark eyes, so I assumed they were brown.
Awesome. Christine Leunens has a website. It's christineleunens.com. And apparently there is a play adaptation that ran from, August 12th to September 9th in 2017 in New Zealand at Circa Theatre. I don't think it's been... that was the only one I saw. But apparently, there's been a play adaptation. And on her website, there's a lot of good reviews for it. So I guess it was a good play.
I'd be interested in seeing a play adaptation.
Yeah.
I'd go to that.
Especially if it was
Based on the
closer
book.
on the book than the movie was.
Yep. I'd like to see that.
That'd be fun.
I mean, the movie was very fun. It was playful. It was interesting.
I was entertained.
Yes.
So, what would you give the book?
Ooh!
Out of 5 stars?
3.5.
3.
3.5 because I liked
3.
it way better than Everything is Illuminated. Sorry.
3.
I would say 3, mostly because I liked Jonathan Foer's writing better.
I get that.
He was a better writer. I'm not gonna lie. But I don't hate it by any means. But it also
I like the themes better.
It didn't make me want to read it constantly either.
The first half of the book I did want to read constantly, and then the second half I was like, you could have ended it there.
I could have, I got about a quarter of a way through the book, and then I didn't read it for a long time. And then I was like, oh crap, I gotta finish this book. And I was like, oh, well, I'm not really missing a lot in the last half of the book, to be honest.
I also hated the ending.
The hell? She just disappeared and he was like, well, I'm gonna write about it.
Yeah.
What bullshit is that? On that point, this
Anyway.
tragic book and movie.
Yeah. So,
That was my theory.
follow us on social media, I guess.
Facebook and Instagram.
Yep, that's where we're at. And
Anywhere that you get your podcasts.
until next time.
Keep the drinks flowing.
And wait, no.
Keep the pages.
Keep the pages
turning.
Turning. Okay. Wait. Keep the pages turning.
And the
and the
drinks
drinks
flowing.
flowing.
Audio engineering, logo creation, and social media content was produced by Lauren Ranney with Ranney Film and Video.
Stock music tracks have been provided by Motion Array and Adobe Stock. Find us on Facebook and Instagram at Liquor&Literature Podcast, where you can dive into more details about the books, authors, and movies we cover. You can find all of our episodes at liquorliteraturepodcast.podbean.com. Until next time, keep the pages turning and the drinks flowing.